All right. Good evening, everyone. And it's possible that where you are in the world, you're just coming back from work, you're in the middle of your day, or you're about to go to bed. Whichever it is, thank you for joining Iwineti Africa. Today, we have an awesome guest, a global impact maker in the world of business and an authority on Africa. You'll be heavily impacted by her conversation, by her dialogue, by her personality. I mean, the energy today. So I want you to stay tuned and do well to invite someone, tag someone, share the link, and let someone join this conversation today. We're going to be talking about doing business in Africa, the stark realities, the ones that don't show up on social media, the ones that don't show up in those lengthy and very nice looking write-ups. Toyin Umesiri is going to share them with us today. Let's welcome her.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Awesome. Yes, Tony is an amazing influence on this planet, as we see
Planet.
it. Yes, on this planet in the world of business because of the level at which she operates. So, the first thing we want to know for those who may not know her story, we want to ask you, ma'am, share your story. How did you become the Toyin Umesiri that we know today?
Come on. No, so thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm joining you from Chicago. I'm originally from Nigeria, West Africa. So I'm a Nigerian American. And I got my first degree in Nigeria. Okay. Abeokuta, Ogun State. I have a first degree in mathematics. And then I came to the US in 2004 to pursue my graduate program. So I have a master's in information systems as well. And then from there, I worked in corporate America, most recently at the headquarters of Fortune 1, Walmart, the world's largest retailer. But beyond, listen, your journey in life is going to take us all places, right? But I think the principles that we live our life with is what actually decides and propels us forward. And that principle is really just thriving where you're planted, bringing your best, and impacting the world wherever you are. So for me, if there's any philosophy, really, is that whatever assignment God gives me, whatever place I find myself, whatever job I have at hand, I give it my best, right? I give it my best, and you will find out that that's one of the secrets of success. Is that the Bible talks about, right, who is found faithful in little. When you're found faithful, I mean, most of us want to, next level, next level. What of the level you're on? Have you maximized it? Have you touched lives? Have you spent everything you've got at that level? Because once you finish the current assignment, new doors will be open to you. And so that's been my own philosophies. Whatever I'm doing at hand, I show up and give my best to it.
Awesome. So, graduate of mathematics, masters in information
System.
management,
Yeah.
information systems. Yes, that's computing. So, how did you move into the world of entrepreneurship?
Oh, wow. So the fun fact about my information systems degree, it was actually held in the College of Business. So it was really not just a computer science degree, it was more of how to use technology to drive
Okay,
the world of business, right?
okay.
And also I studied SAP, which is Enterprise Resource Planning System. So once I moved into the corporate space, into business, right? Literally, I was sitting with business people, accounting. I even had to take managerial accounting, financial
Mhm.
accounting. So in of itself, I was exposed into the world of business as a technologist, right?
Okay,
Because there are sides of technology where all you're doing is programming, and I used to program. But this new world of information system, literally, you're an intermediary, between the business world interpreting their requirements
mhm.
to the other side of programming. So that in of itself exposed me to the 360 side of business,
Okay,
accounting, right? Right, procurement, manufacturing, on and on. And then when I moved into corporate of retail, so retail manufacturing, I've worked in both of those spaces. So Walmart is in the world of retail. Listen,
okay.
retail is about buying and selling,
Mhm.
right? It's about distribution, it's about supply chain, logistics, right? Merchandising. So, in of itself, I was exposed to that world because I supported that world. And then a couple of years ago, I left to pursue, when I talk about trade with Africa, on, hold
Yeah.
these conversations with ambassadors and government and talking about why are we not trading with Africa, right? Why is the
Mm-hmm.
world not trading? When I mean trade,
Mm,
Africa is the source, is the origin of many of the things being traded in the world.
mm,
Okay? So the raw, right? But
mm-hmm,
it's not playing at the end last mile because that's where the money is. The
mm,
money in global supply chain is not as the source of raw materials. The money is made in finished goods, in fully packaged products, right?
mm-hmm.
Last
Yeah.
mile to the consumer, whether it's diamonds, whether it's gold, whether it's plants, right? In all things supply chain. The people
Mm-hmm.
who produce the raw are not the ones who make the most. It's the branding, the marketing, the sales. And that's what's led me into teaching entrepreneurship, right? Coaching, guiding international trade as well.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's beautiful insight. The value at the end of the day, the value is not in the raw materials. Is not in the I have all the minerals in the world in my country. The value is in the finished goods. And let me ask Nazaru, what does it mean and where did that come from?
Oh, yeah, it's very simple.
Yeah.
But what you just said, there is value all in. There's value in raw, but the greatest
Okay.
value,
Mm-hmm.
right? The maximum value, the value you can command is when you've processed. So everything has value. The raw diamond has value. That's why people are still looking for it. But trust me, the polished diamond commands more value. And part of the journey of supply chains is value. That's why we say value addition,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's why we use that phrase. So to your question, Nazaru is really in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible, it's Nazareth. In the
Mm,
Bible, we talked
okay.
about, the Messiah. They've seen the Messiah, and it says from Nazareth. Say, what can come from Nazareth?
Yeah.
What can come from Nazareth is that idea of trade with Africa, and people say, "Oh, Africa." I'm like,
Mm.
yeah, watch out. What can come from us, Nazareth? Come and see, right? Come
Wow.
and see what's available. This is the future of the world, and in a way, I would say this: Africa belongs to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You belong
Yeah.
to Africa. So the greatness of Africa, you are the greatness of Africa, and the greatness of Africa is yours, right, to enjoy as well.
Okay. One more thing about you before I ask the next question. Where do you get the energy? What drives you?
Energy. Listen, what you see needs to propel you to action,
Mm,
right? But if what you are seeing is not propelling, listen, if you cannot see positive things, you cannot do positive things, right? So if you see what I see, let me tell you, my first degree is mathematics, okay?
yeah.
And we see patterns, we see trends, we see opportunities. I'm a trained futurist. My previous job, we build for the future we see because
Mm,
today was already built yesterday. Everything you're seeing today, the technologies, everything you're enjoying today has already been won by those who built today,
mm-hmm.
right? Tomorrow is for those who build. If you don't position yourself to win in tomorrow, tomorrow is going to be created by those who believe in tomorrow. So that's the way the world works.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to be excited about the future. Today is today. Listen, today is today. There's very
Mm-hmm.
little you can do about today. You ought to have been doing something. If you wanted today to be fantastic, you needed to have been cooking that food years ago.
Yesterday.
If you want to enjoy your future 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15, 20, what you do today needs to be getting you excited. So I'm excited about tomorrow. I'm excited about creating, what I want. That's the
Mm,
power of you. What you want is not given to you. You create what you want.
yeah.
And that journey is exciting when you know you are the architect of everything you want. You can't blame anybody. You just
Mm,
need to get to work and be excited about that journey. So that
awesome.
gets me excited.
Awesome. You see the future, and the future that you see drives you, gives you the energy to keep creating that future. Nobody's going to do it for you. That's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. So let's come down to Africa. What opportunities do you see? Why should anyone in the world trade with Africa? and how can they do it? What opportunity are you seeing? Yeah,
Okay, let me break it down because you said anyone. Let's
yeah.
call them stakeholders. Let's play this. Let's lay what's on the card on the table, the card on the table. We
Hmm.
have to know that different people are looking at Africa differently.
Hmm.
If you're an African sitting in an African country, what you see in your country and what you know about Africa is different. If you're an African living outside of Africa, in US, UK, Australia, Canada, your perception of Africa is different. It's either you were running away from something or running towards something. So that
Mm.
story is different.
Okay.
If you're a non-African in Africa, depending on what country you're in, your perception of Africa is different than a non-African sitting in a nice office in Europe, in US, in Canada, to putting charts and trends and the images, the media. They are factoring the images of Africa and they think Africa is 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to acknowledge that how people perceive opportunities in Africa is shaped by the stories they believe,
Mm.
right? So, diaspora Africa, listen, they are subject to the stories about Africa that they want to believe. If it is positive, they will be positive. If it's negative, the same thing is true of all these categories. So, the first thing is, what do you believe? Because there's nothing I can tell you.
Mm.
If I tell you opportunity, you will hear people say, oh, the government, oh, the. So we have to check our stories and we have to check the source of the stories, right? Because when somebody like myself comes and I say, trade with Africa, whatever resistance you put up is not me, it is you.
Mm.
Okay? So
Okay.
here's the key. If we want facts, we need to go back to data, right? So the key is not to keep telling the same stories, but to quickly go out to what is emerging. What does the data say? Right? What does the data and the trends? And here's the key. The data says we are a growing continent.
Okay.
Okay? The data talks about we are a young, vibrant continent,
Mm-hmm.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
The data says we have 60% of the remaining arable land in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The data talks about our minerals. The data talks about the land, right? The data talks about the population growth. Okay. So that's where this has to start from, the data, not the stories. Now, when
Mm-hmm.
you go to politics, what does the data say about politics? Look at the politics of Africa 40 years ago versus today. What does the data say? It may not be the ideal, but has it improved? Right?
Mm-hmm.
From what it was 40, 50, 30, 20, even 10 years ago. Because many people are not understanding when we say trend, is it going backward or is it going forward? When
Wow.
you talk about policies,
Mm-hmm.
AFCFTA, is it going backward or improving? Right? Rapid implementation of trade policies, is it going backward or positive? When you start seeing where the data is going, it's supposed to get you excited. But if you're just thinking stories, you don't data. So let me say data, follow the data. And the data is saying more money is injected into trade. When you follow what AU is doing, when you follow what Afrexim is doing, when you follow what other governments are doing on the continent, they follow the data, they don't follow the story. They might create a story, and the story is to keep everybody away, but they are not keeping themselves away. The people who crafted stories is a protection to
Mm.
reduce and eliminate competition, right? When anybody
Wow.
say China, this, listen, those same people watch their action. Don't watch what they are saying. Watch the moves that people are making because they are making those moves based on data. And
Mm.
the data shows Africa is the future. The resources, minerals are not ending. The people are growing. People are buying more diapers. When there is population growth, demand for consumer goods goes up, not down. But there are
Mm.
things we have to watch out for as well. So I hope that helped. So that's the
That,
first
that
thing.
that's
Go with
awesome.
data. Don't go with
So
stories, because those stories, listen, those stories shape identity,
mm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And those identity eliminates you from the competition,
Okay.
right? If there is a race and the crown and trophy belongs to you and I, and a story tells you you don't belong in this race, and you eliminate yourself from that race, the people there enroll themselves, the people who enroll run that race will be the ones to win. So if you want
Okay.
to win, get involved.
Now, these are very serious claims, right? That the data is telling us that the future is Africa. The Africa has the youngest population, the largest portion in the world of arable land. The population is growing. There are changes in government policies, behaviors of governments over the last 30, 40 years. Great. So if that is true, and you have pointed out that by virtue of that fact alone, the fact that these fundamentals, these data, aside from the stories, there's opportunity here. Maybe you want to also point out what you see in terms of the opportunities, and then why are all these young people leaving Africa not seeing those
Mhm.
opportunities?
Right. So the key is that every nation around the world that's a superpower, that was a superpower and is a superpower and wants to continue to be a superpower, we will never ignore Africa,
Okay.
because the future of their power is where the source of resources are. Okay. So remember, I shared at the beginning that this race is always about the future. It's not about today.
Mm-hmm.
That investment, when we say invest in yourself, invest, this is what the world does. The people are investing in Africa to make sure they have a strong relationship and a presence in the future of the world. But here is the key: the youth of Africa,
Mm.
are they educated about this reality?
Hmm.
How are you educating yourself about your own land? What do you know about the resources in your state, in your city, in your country? Let's start there.
Mm.
When we say knowledge, if you refuse to read, listen, nobody's going to feed you. It is not my job to bring you food, to feed you, to spoon feed anybody when it comes to information knowledge. But those who want to achieve superior results must pursue superior knowledge. You must invest in knowing, because the whole world benefits when you know nothing.
Yeah.
Okay? When you know nothing, listen, you even what is in your backyard, the gold diamond raw in your backyard, right? All the cocoa cashew in your father's village that you're supposed to be taking and using to benefit yourself. Somebody somewhere that knows the value of what's in your backyard will benefit from it. So when we say knowledge is power, is that if you refuse, whose job is it to empower you with the knowledge that will help the individual achieve opportunities? That's the question. That's the question I have. Is it the government? Listen, the
Mm.
best thing the government will do for you is that first degree. You know the history of education. I've talked about this before,
Mm.
right? It's so that you can get a livelihood.
Yeah.
What you and I are talking about is beyond the promise of a white collar job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is every, oh, go to school. Okay, you've gone to school. Get a degree. You've gotten a degree. Get a
Mm.
job. You've got a job. If that's satisfactory, that's okay. What we are
Mm.
talking about now is wealth creation. That wasn't taught in that education.
Yeah.
The wealth education we are talking about, okay, is how you're going to create value with the things you can see around you, how you're going to use your skills and the resources available to you, and even your relationships. When
Mm.
we say network is your network is your net worth, we're talking about the power that relationships can generate to help you create wealth. We're not
Mm.
telling you if you need a job, listen, all you need is one employer to get you a desk and be paying you salary.
Yep.
And that's fine. But the day you say you want entrepreneurship, you want to create, listen, you will know people. You will know more people. More people
Mm,
have to know you to do that work. So
mm,
who is responsible now? That's my question to you. Who is now responsible for
mm.
Africa's youth to develop the skills and acquire the knowledge to create wealth?
Wow. That's insightful, and I hope young people are listening. I like to acknowledge those in the room today, in the big room. It's a big room, it's a global room. Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining from Nigeria. Thank you, James, for joining from Canada. Thank you, Zoe from Nigeria, master of the mic and the pen. Thank you so much, Joycelyn, for being there too. Thank you. And there are a few comments. James says the Jakpa conundrum. You see, Jakpa has become a global phenomenon because James is actually Canadian, but he knows what Jakpa means, right?
I do too.
Justin says, go with the data, not the story. Watch their moves, not the stories they tell. Nice one. Interesting discussion. Great one. Good evening from Ghana. Zoe says, I am Zoe Octavia, master of ceremonies, particular for wedding parties and so forth. Awesome one. Aha. Zoe says, Africa is the future. World powers would never neglect Africa, but Africans ought to empower themselves with knowledge so as to benefit from the resources. Thank you so much for engaging. Do well to invite someone to this conversation. I'm going to dig deeper into this issue of opportunities. Tony has facilitated big events, brought together awesome players in the industry, asking them to trade with Africa. In those events, give us an insight. What do you tell them to come and do in Africa?
Listen,
What are you exposing to them?
I'll be honest with you. People want to trade with Africa. The
Okay.
question is Africa prepared and skilled to trade with the world? I'll be honest. This is why I teach. I became an educator because the number one problem
Mm,
is that the opportunities abound, but the skill to participate in those opportunities, listen, we are looking for that.
mm,
If I say to you, can you produce 1 million pieces of a t-shirt? That's when you realize that the question is, where is your creation? What have you created to the international standards? Buyers are looking, they are looking for your shoes, for your handbags to standard. So you see, the stories do not match. It
mhm,
doesn't match. I can tell you now, when we say trade with Africa, everybody says yes. And then, because this is not a story, we all like to talk, 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 talk. In the world of business is action.
yeah.
So once the story finishes and the conversation, and then the buyer says, okay, where, who are they? Where is
Mm,
the factory? Where is the productivity? Where are the people? You realize, it's a story of productivity. Trade is a story of productivity. It's not a story of charity.
mm,
It's not a story where people help you. That's the problem. So everybody watching now, oh yeah, there are opportunities in Africa. I'm saying, in your own hands, what are you holding in your hand that you want to trade with? Whether in your country, whether on the continent, or whether with the world. The only time trade happens is an exchange. And when you don't bring anything to the exchange room, nothing happens. Because we are coming and you're saying you want to trade, but you didn't bring anything to the negotiating table. That is charity.
mm,
So part of the challenge today is that the mindset that says help Africa is never going to help Africa. It's going to keep Africa leaning on a crutch, depending. Because the only way you trade with strength and capacity. You come to
mm,
the room, you come to the table with your capacity. And that's what we must build. Build your individual capacity, build your collective capacity, and with it, you will trade with the world. And one of the other things I tell governments, I say, oh, everybody complains about the middlemen, right? In the supply chain. Oh, they come and take our stuff. And then they come and take, right? I'm saying, are you ready to do the work the middleman does? Because the
mm,
international trade, international marketplace will never lower its standard to your level. When
yeah.
I say to your level, to whatever you are doing right now. The standard is the standard. The middlemen are closing the gap. And if it's easy to eliminate middlemen, very, very easy from supply chain. All you have to do is just take the work they are doing, take it on upon yourself. Whatever they are doing, the packaging, the processing, the branding, the marketing they are doing, just do it. Because after all, you have the raw. You don't need them. They need you. The person who has the raw actually can own the entire supply chain and should be owning the supply chain. But here's the key. When you don't do to your raw and you sell your raw, nobody forced you to sell your raw. Nobody twisted your hands to give it away. You refused. The job you refuse to do is what they do. And the person who does the work gets the reward. So it's don't sell. The key is don't sell, process. Process and sell. Process, brand, sell, and carry it, and you will go there and get all the reward. So the person who does that middle work gets all the reward. So when we're in the room, we talk about all these things. We talk about the opportunity. We bring charts on and on. But where it lands is who are the people that want to trade? Who are the people with the capacity to trade, with the skills to trade? And that's when you start realizing that people are busy talking. They're not busy learning. So that's where we are. That's the stalemate.
Okay, that's amazing. So the middlemen. So would you say that these middlemen are mostly non-Africans because they have acquired the skills to process, so to speak?
Okay, what I would say is that I want to make sure I deliver what people need to hear.
Yeah.
Not what they want to hear. The international market does not discriminate.
Okay.
What it wants is what it wants. It wants value. Yeah. Whoever creates value, right? And it's like this cup. If I bring cup and I say this is my cup, as long as you like my cup, right?
Yeah.
After all, the whole world is at your doorstep looking for something in your nation already. What it means is the world knows how to go to the ends of the earth to get what it needs. Part of this journey is, do you carry what the world needs? Because the middlemen, they are just carrying, they are increasing value and they are carrying what is in demand. This is the law of demand and supply. Economics, right? Demand and supply. So for me, it's about skill. If it is a white person, a black, Asian, Indian, it doesn't matter who knows how to create what is in demand. If you have in your hands what the world is demanding and what is desirable in the world will buy. For example, Black Panther. Black Panther movie was a futuristic story about Africa. And that led to demand for African dress, African this. But where did it come from? China. China supplied.
Yeah.
Right? But why? Why? China met the need of demand. It doesn't matter where anything in the world is coming from, as long as it is attached to the story people want to participate in. Yeah. It's like the fashion industry in Africa. What you call mostly today African print is not printed in Africa. But it can be printed in Africa if Africa decides to own its own story and to create products and services that supports that story. Africa sells. Africa sells. I've taken pictures before. Black soap, African this, shea butter. Africa sells. But who is selling Africa?
Okay.
Who is selling Africa?
Oh, okay. Let's. I don't know whether to say come down to our reality.
Okay.
Let me say our reality, not the Chicago reality. You know, you're in Chicago.
It's okay. I get it.
All right. Yeah. So let me be on the side of someone who is sitting here, and he says, we have a lot of problems here. We have issues with access to capital. We have issues with power supply. We have issues with corruption. We have all sorts of issues, right? And no, Katun put it rightly. He says, it said, this standard thing what we keep talking about, this standard of the thing. How do we measure up to the required standards? And you see, our challenge is we have so many limitations that are
Mhm,
inhibiting us from being able to trade like China, so to speak.
mhm.
So and definitely a lot of people on the platform resonate with you. People want to trade with Africa. Is Africa prepared to trade? All right. Trade is a story of productivity, not a story of charity. That's from Zoe as well. But the issue is that these problems we have to deal with: the power problem, the corruption problem, the capital problem, and so forth. How do you want us? How would you like us to address
Okay. Okay. I'll ask a question. You
it?
said I should come down to reality. Okay. All the problems you just listed, does any of them stand in the way of you posting a shoe or a handbag on Instagram and selling it to somebody in Texas?
Well, but the issue of skill that you mentioned earlier
No,
comes
the
in.
scale is not the problem yet.
Mhm. Okay.
Bible talks about be fruitful and multiply. I'm going back to, you said we should come back to Greg. We
Yeah.
are, many people are going after problem that is not even theirs.
Mm.
You've not born fruits. You've not created one. You are talking about you can create a million.
Okay.
Let's leave a million alone. Let's leave that problem to those who already have factories, right? That they're trying to distribute a million. Most people listen, like, right? So you said we should come back. Let's come back to the people listening.
Mm-hmm.
What can put food on your table right now has nothing to do with the government yet,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Listen, when you buy from China, you don't even talk about government. You go on Alibaba, you go on AliExpress, even the people listening to me, you are all doing this thing and you are sending your money to China,
Yeah.
right? You are buying things from China. The phone in your hand, you are sending your money. They will not tell you, oh, government. You think they don't have their own government problems? Government problem goes away the day you have the skill where you can create, right, and sell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I do also agree that once you start going into scale, this is where we go into the world of policy. Listen, we will get consultants, we will go through the books, we will do the work. But most people, that's not even the problem of most people in the world. The problem of most people in the world is, can you create and can you sell? And we are
Mm.
in the world of social media now where you have abundant tools that has nothing to do with government policy in Abuja.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do. But again, but the stories we tell though,
Yeah.
we blame everything and we say it's the government. It's the government. It's the government. Even when let's say when the government is functioning, let's even assume everything is working. You have electricity. You have everything. It will still not solve what already needs to be solved.
Mm.
U.S. Biden is not responsible for helping an average American create and run their business. Yes, they will create enabling environments for you to scale. Yes, they will support you. Yes, on and on and on. But that's what I'm saying. This story, the stories that individuals are buying into, that is stopping them from doing exactly what they need to be doing, is just a story that is
Mm.
actually, in a way, leading to, can I say it, laziness, some form of it. I'm very, if you will bear with me, I say
Yeah.
things as they as I
Mm-hmm.
see it.
Mm-hmm.
Laziness is unwillingness to do the work required. And when
Mm.
you start outsourcing your own responsibility to your government, when I'm saying, let's come back home. What are we? What are you responsible for? I'm not
Yeah.
denying that they are responsible for certain things. And in my class, there's a particular class where I will list and say, this is what government does. This is what private sector does. If private sector fails to do this, nothing is going to happen. If government fails to do this, nothing is going to happen. The job at hand is that both parties understand their responsibility and they meet in the middle. That's why we have business government engagements.
Mm.
But when business fails, and they say, oh, I failed because the government failed. And then when the government fails and says they failed because this is the ping pong, right? So what I try to, when I'm talking to government, I'll talk to government about government responsibility. When I'm talking to private sector, I talk to private sector about private sector responsibility. So right
Okay.
here, I'm talking to private sector.
Mm. Yeah.
So what is the responsibility of the private sector? Because that's the only thing you have control over. And listen, if you want to influence government, there is a way and a process of doing it. If the
Mm.
government is the problem, there's policy advocacy, there's mobilization of the private sector, there's association you must belong in, there are things you must do to lobby the government. This is also the role of the private sector.
Mm.
If the private sector keeps complaining, yet instead of mobilizing, instead of lobbying, let me tell you, the private sector actually has to invest and put money and get consultants to write new policies and to lobby the government. That's how things work. But just talking and pointing fingers does not move the economy.
Yeah.
When the private sector strengthens itself, right, comes together, right, you actually then also have to say, what do we need? How do we want our government to function for us?
Mm.
There's a process for it, the democratic process, and an average person is not actually enrolled in that process. And that's one of the problems. But so you see what two things? Government has its responsibility. There's a way where mobilization of the private sector can influence the government. An
Mm-hmm.
individual cannot influence the government. I hope people
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
The government, right? I'm talking about democratic process.
Yes.
Even in election, that's
Mm-hmm.
part of the power. If it's mobilizing to change government, it's not an individual changing government. So I'm just also educating people about there's a process. Even here in the US, you can complain all you want. But if you don't follow the process of gathering signature, of mobilizing yourself, or making sure the signature has a number, of voting, of casting vote, nothing still changes. But
Mm.
beyond that, I'm just saying that one is a lot of work. It's
Yeah.
actually more work than what I'm saying. What's in your hands? What can you create?
Mm.
Instagram is in your hands. Clubhouse is in your hands. The internet is in your hands. What can you create? Let's start where we are and then grow. I'm not denying the challenges. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying part of the journey of success is overcoming every challenge collectively.
Yeah.
Collectively.
Wow. Awesome. Let me just read a few comments, and that is amazing. I think you've spoken about the education we need to have, the skills we need to build up. You've also spoken about the collaboration and the need to harness our numbers in order to influence the government that we keep complaining about. And then to use the tools that are in our hands. There is what we can do, with social media, what we can do with technology, what we can do with what is in our hands already. That is absolutely amazing. Let me just read a few of this. James has just been giving us a lot of, there's like double-barreled machine guns here. Awesome. Yes, international traders look for consistency, reliability, and sustainability and security within the supply chain. Small traders can sell products at lower volume, but I think that, but at larger, I'm sure that's value, right? Yeah, larger value. Then larger volume requires more stringent standards and guarantees. Okay, African produce is sold globally, and notice electricity is required minimally to grow fruits and vegetables. In other words, we don't have to complain about power yet, right? Like you said. All right, in Canada, I can easily buy fruits and vegetables from Morocco, Egypt, South Africa, and a lesser extent from Nigeria and Ethiopia. Awesome. Zoe says we have control over our private willingness to work, develop skills, and implement diligently. And I must add to collaborate as well. Yes, James also says that non-produce items are much harder to obtain. Start where we are and grow. That's awesome insight. I'm going to let Toyin take a breather, a short period, take a few breaths, and just play something very, very short. While we come back, we'll take two more questions and we'll let Toyin go. Stay hanging there. All right, awesome breather. Yeah, so I think we took a few breaths there. Thank you for hanging in there. So I'm going to dig further into this. What is hindering us, so to speak? You've mentioned a few of them. So let me just ask. It seems that most African entrepreneurs here, locally sitting here, are limited in their capacity to comprehend these humongous opportunities. Aside
Hmm.
from education, lack of collaboration, laziness, are there other factors that could be inhibiting people from seeing these opportunities and harnessing them?
Okay, so I want to give the background that for me, I served as a strategist for Fortune One, the world's largest company, and this is one thing I will share. Big businesses, medium businesses, startups have different capacities, different skills, different resources at their disposal. Okay. I remember being interviewed on Al Jazeera, right, about AFCFT. And I pretty much said, listen, the Dangotes of the world, they have
Mhm.
everything they need. They are not complaining.
Yeah.
Those who are winning, you will never hear. Listen, this is the way the whole world works.
Yeah.
Complain. If you want to hear the truth, guys, I would say the truth. Those who complain are the ones who feel hopeless. And hopelessness can be traced to lack of information, resources, and capacity.
Wow.
Those who have capacity, resources, people, everything, you will not hear them complain. They are every day designing strategies, implementing strategies. They are winning, they are strategizing, they are building, they are very quiet, they are moving.
Mm.
Where you're going to get a lot of noise, are the people that do not have resources, they do not have knowledge, they do not have capacity. And that's where hopelessness is. This is why I always say empower yourself. Start with knowledge first
Mm.
of how the world is, not how you've been made to believe. Back to the stories. So if I'm talking to a Fortune 500 company, the conversation is different because they've got money, they've got resources, they're ready to go. Any strategy I go in there, they're ready to pull the trigger.
Mhm.
They are action takers. They have bankers. We are talking
Mm.
about, trade policy. Like one of my events when I connected the US Exim Bank and invited the African Exim Bank. December, they just closed and signed a $500 million MOU because
Mm.
right? So I'm just trying to say, when I'm in those rooms, the conversation is different because the
Yeah.
conversation is not, oh, me, oh, me. They are fully empowered
Mm.
and they are looking for strategies, opportunities, and they go and they're ready to fire. Middle, they is still, it's a little bit less. Where you're going to find, this is why I talk about entrepreneurship, is that the entry point into wealth creation is to get the mindset, strategies, skills, and knowledge. Get that first. That is easily accessible first.
Mm.
But everybody that do not have capacity, they are always reaching for the mango. They don't have a ladder to reach. And those who have ladder, they are plucking it every day.
Mm.
I'm saying build your ladder.
Yeah.
Build the ladder that will help you reach the opportunities that abound. Because if you say, okay, there's diamond, there's all, but you don't have factory, you don't have resources, then people go, oh, I give up. And that's what leads to hopelessness. So if you are at the grassroots, let me also tackle things. Pride. Pride is a problem too. I'm
Mm.
keeping this. Say I should come home. I'm bringing this home. Let me bring
Yeah.
it home. I've brought laziness home. Right? Is a disinterest to do work. We
Yeah.
want all the beautiful thing. When we say show up and do work, 10 people will become one person.
Yeah.
Everybody will disappear soon. Can we say the truth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the entry point to wealth creation, the journey of wealth creation, let's say it has 100 steps. Don't worry about step 100. Worry about step 1.
Mm.
The entry point is knowledge.
Wow.
And people are trying to skip knowledge. That's the problem. And do you know why? Pride. You are so proudful about your first degree, second degree that didn't tell you anything about this journey. I'm a doctor. I'm a this. I'm a lawyer. Okay, okay, what can you do with that in this journey now? Cocoa, transforming cocoa to chocolate. With that degree, did they teach you the processing process? We have to learn it.
Yeah.
Like everything now that we need to do, first we have to learn at how the people that are doing it have done it.
Mm.
And we don't want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to learn what Ashes and Cadbury are doing. You don't want to learn what Pfizer is doing. You don't want to learn what Unilever is doing. You don't want to learn. Okay.
Mm.
And you want to compete. You want to compete with what? So
Wow.
let's say there are 200 steps to success. All I've been saying is step one, leave step 50 where you talk to government. Leave step 100 where you talk about policy. Leave
Yeah.
step 40, 45. I'm saying the first journey is exposing our minds to the knowledge everybody else they are using to power the world. To right? Everything that we're talking about, well, even if it's cassava processing, let me even pick one of the simplest things. Let's say it's even cassava processing. Do you know how to process it? Let's say
Mm.
it's even apparel manufacture. Do you have the skills to manufacture? Whatever it is now that you want to do, that you want to create, requires knowledge. I'm not
Yeah.
saying build a rocket ship. I'm not saying build a plane. People have already figured out how to build a plane. That's not what we're talking about. I'm saying fundamental things,
Mm.
right? Just fundamental. How to create a pencil and pen. Like I'm saying, let's go back. Even book, just fundamentals. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of wealth creation is back to let's get the knowledge that everybody has so
Mm.
that we can match up and then we can compete. This is the same
Okay.
thing China. And so every time people are trying to skip this process, oh, I already know. Oh, no, Tony, tell us something else. No, tell is the government, is it this? I'm going.
Mm. Okay. Sorry. I
That's
mean,
the frustration, really.
that's the frustration. Yeah. Step one. Step one.
Step
The
one.
knowledge.
Let's go to
Step
step one.
one. The knowledge. I want you to. You see, I've heard you talk about this more than once about the value of the education we got for the first 18 years of our lives.
21.
21 years of
You
our
push
lives.
it.
Now,
Even
I want you to talk about it because I want more people to hear it, right? What do you think? I mean, how can you tell us that we spent 21 years and the knowledge is not relevant to what we really need to do?
the knowledge is relevant to getting a job.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, please go
process,
ahead.
okay, let me go back to the history. So I thought I teach history of money, history of this, history, so that people will know what got us here, why we are where we are. Okay.
Mm.
Is that go back to the industrial era where mass production, right? Industrial era, mass production of goods and right of goods,
Mhm.
cars, things, right? These are years ago. In order to meet that era demanded highly skilled workers, engineers, accountants, lawyers, on and on to
Yeah.
power that system. So the people building industries, if you want to construct a house now, let's say you want to a skyscraper, there's labor involved, there is skill, highly skilled workers are
Mhm.
required to build a skyscraper. So everything, a car, you need superior engineering knowledge to build a car. So everything that the industrial era creates, a phone, this phone, listen, superior intelligence, superior IQ to figure out the programming, the circuits. What the industrial era need is highly skilled, able IQ,
Mhm.
with right? And in
Yeah.
order for you to create people that have that superior IQ technology skills that can create all these rocket ships and planes, we had to put them through a training process. So nothing wrong. I just say understand this.
Mm.
So on average, it takes 20 plus years to create the perfect employee that will do this work. So that's one. The second thing, okay, that is happening at the same time is that when more babies are born, if those people they need food, clothing, shelter, Maxwell's hierarchy of need.
Mm.
And if you don't take care of those people, it becomes the burden of a government. Anybody that cannot provide food, clothing, shelter for themselves, the government, they will be on the streets. Now the government resources has to be used. Okay, so the second thing, two things colliding at the same time: demand for skills, growing population of people who need food, clothing, shelter. Okay, so why don't we get those people to develop the skills that they can then sell to the industrial era, and then the industrial era will give you an income so that you can go get your food, clothing, and shelter, so that it's not you are not relying on the government to give you food.
That problem is solved. The lowest level problem.
So it solves itself. Right? And then the education system is so perfectly engineered, like, listen, calculus, algebra, you will train your mind. In fact, it will condition your spirit to be keeping quiet. Remember, the primary school is a replica of the perfect employee environment. Keep quiet, do what you are being done, finish your assignment, turn in your assignment, and you will get A+. The promise of the employee, your income is your A+.
Yeah.
When you open your account and they've dropped something, that is the reward of you contributing and doing what you are being told. The day you stop doing what you are being told on your job, you are out of that system. So the system works for what it was created for. That system did not promise anybody success. It didn't promise you how to create wealth creation, how to deliver maximum value. It didn't teach you about your mind, creativity, productivity. It didn't teach you about your heart, your passion, unleashing that. It didn't teach you communication skills to sell, to brand, to market. Because I always say marketing, sales, and branding, the fundamental skill is communication. Many people don't understand. And we are from a culture that do not value this important skill. That's why if you don't brand, if you don't market, if you don't sell, you will be at the very beginning stage of wealth creation. The people who maximize and make most wealth, listen, they are great communicators. They say what they mean and they mean what they say. And they will tell you a story that is so delicious and you will buy that story and you bring your money to buy it. All of the things, the Gucci, the Prada, they are all stories. They're all stories. All of the luxury, Lexus, you are buying their story and you are giving them your money. So if you also want to create wealth, part of this skill, you teach yourself communication. But the degree says don't communicate. In fact, when you start arguing your way in your class, your teacher will say, no, just copy and paste. Right? In the exam, they don't want to care what's on your mind. Your creativity is not the agenda. They just want you to learn what they told you to learn, memorize it, and show that you've memorized. So that's why I explained this backdrop, right? So when people now want to go into wealth creation, we were not designed for it. The education system did not. Did they even say anything about wealth creation? Part of the other thing we also have to switch. The conversation we all keep hearing, Kenneth, is poverty. Everybody talks about poverty, but they don't talk about wealth creation. Because the only way to eliminate poverty is not to manage poverty. It is to teach people how to create wealth. The moment is like if you enter a room and you keep saying it's dark, and somebody, a PhD, saying, let's write a research paper about dark. What is the intensity of the darkness? And this is what's going on in the world about poverty. Let's alleviate poverty. Let's eliminate darkness. It is too dark here. Africa is the dark continent. Labels and... But the solution is to switch on the lights. Right? The solution to chase away poverty is just go and learn how to create wealth. So the full-time job of everybody, this is what China figured out 40 years ago. For many, many years, China too, it was, oh, there are hungry people in China. But China said, you know what? Enough. Let us go and figure that knowledge and let us invest in it. And let us use that knowledge to create factories and produce.
Mm.
So it's still back to step one. It's still back to step one. Is that poverty, ultimately, this is me saying, is rooted in lack of knowledge. Because the
Mm.
moment you know what they know and you do what they do, it's not rocket science. You will get the results they are getting. But
Wow.
if we miss step one, we go back to the Bible, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the moment, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can be in a village and all you can do is weave a basket. The
Mm.
moment you can find somebody to buy your basket, you are not going hungry again. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are. The moment you can create a basket that is beautiful and you can carry it to a physical or virtual market that people can see your beauty, the beauty of your creation, and you can say, buy my beauty, buy my basket. This basket is beautiful. Can you see it? It took me 2 days. Oh, my sister, this is, and we know how to do these things. The people in the village know how to do trade more than the people that went to school and are sitting in a desk. Because that's how they feed their children. That's how they sent us to school. That's how they sent you to school. The
Mm.
cocoa farm sent some people to school,
Yeah.
right? The things they grew in the farm that they sold in the market sent many people to school. I'm saying you can upgrade that trading level. You can trade on the internet. Africans have always been traders. Listen, go back to your grandfather, grandma. Listen, they know how to sell a bunch of stuff. They didn't need a degree to sell.
Mm.
Our grandfathers did not need a degree to sell cocoa or
Mm.
peanut or groundnuts. They didn't need a degree. The key is there are more sophisticated ways of selling more sophisticated things, and the virtue of our education should be where we are.
Mm.
We don't need to trade the way they did, but we can use Instagram to trade. We can use the internet to trade. We are more we should be our education should be more sophisticated levels of trading. But trust me, trade is in your blood. Trade is in your blood as Africans.
Mm.
What we are not doing is the advanced, what we call the the refined, where it is you trade with a piece of paper, purchase
Mm.
order, invoices, you sign a signature with contracts. Digital trade. But trade is as simple as everything you see every time you go to an African market. That is trade. Come and buy my fish, oh. This fish is fresh, oh. Come and buy my corn, oh. And you say, is it today's corn or yesterday's corn? And I say, smell it. They say, smell it. Go and be telling them on Instagram to smell your goods. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. I'm trying to keep it simple, guys.
And it's interesting that you said that because a lot of people who are doing business these days, the moment they show up online for maybe 10 days and nothing happens, they give up. But I see that you show up every day,
I'm here.
multiple
I'm
times a
here.
day.
I'm here.
Because like you said, that is what the trader in the market is doing. He
That's all.
comes out
Bread,
every
the bread
single day
seller
selling.
faithfully shows up at the bus stop every morning.
Hmm. Yeah.
In Nigeria, you say akara, the bean cake. Faithfully every 5 a.m. clockwork.
Yeah.
Because the day they stop selling, this day that is the day they stop making money. They are there as your bus driver is there. They're like, because the bus driver didn't have breakfast. They are their breakfast. They are listen, we are showing up to feed you. Bring me that fresh money, give it to me. So I'm trying to just make this thing very, very simple. Even though again, I've worked for the biggest company in the world, Fortune 1. But
Hmm.
I'll tell you, in simple African, the African in me sees this. You walk into a Nima Marcus and you
Hmm.
see perfume. They're like, oh, it smells good. It's the same thing as the bread seller telling you, sniff my bread.
Yeah.
It's fresh bread, agege bread. What is the difference? It's back to the story. When you don't value these African stories, when you think what your African mom, grandfather selling is inferior to somebody in Imamako selling perfume, when you degrade your identity, then we don't understand what we have. I'm telling you that the person who sells mango, there is dignity. I joke, and I say, listen, it's the same thing the bread seller does. I'm just saying, buy my bread, go to my academy.
Yeah.
There is dignity when you create something, when you invest your time, energy in creativity. This is Genesis 1:28. This is the
Mm.
mandate of heaven. Be fruitful, multiply,
That's
replenish the earth, subdue it. You know what you do to subdue? You make sure your message and the things you've created go all over the world. And that's why there's cell phone, Apple cell phone, they've subdued. It's all over the world. Microsoft PC, it has won. It's gone around. It started as an idea. Then they created one. They took it to the factory. They distributed it in the US. They distributed it in UK. Now all over the world. Why? Somebody's brilliant idea has saturated the world. That's what the Bible says. But you first start with step.
one.
Thank you.
Knowledge. Awesome. Thank you so much. Our time is almost up. Yeah, let me just read a few comments and I'll ask you the right last question today to drop with our viewers. James says certainly Africans are amazing hustlers looking for ways to sell and create commerce. It's always been that way. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll come back to Zoe's question. What does it take to enroll in the academy? Yes, that's one of the things I'll ask Tony before we leave. Just stay tuned. And by the way, and that's the URL to the academy, toyinumeSiri.academy. And we have Zoe also saying we are storytellers naturally. Tales by Moonlight, in quote. That's a program we used to see when we were younger. Now we create, brand our creation, and echo our stories to the ends of the earth.
With pride.
With pride, yes. Hawk it
With
with pride.
pride. Like, listen, with dignity and pride. Like, if you don't buy my story, you are missing out. If you don't buy Burberry,
yeah.
If you don't you feel that you've missed out?
Yep.
Guys,
Africans have always been traded. African pride, yes. African pride. Awesome. Hilarious. A people on dark, a film, a music festival centered on dark, the creative ways to live and die in the dark. When we all have all we have to do is switch on the light, right? And the light starts with knowledge, relevant knowledge. And I like that emphasis on knowledge relevant to translate your raw material to finished goods.
Yes. Story. Listen, if you want to invest in real estate and you go to medical school, it doesn't match. I say that specific knowledge will open specific doors for you. There was a class I taught on 30 keys to unlock success. Your degree opens the door, right, to a job. Those who don't have that degree, they can't get that job.
Yep.
That's why they say go to school, right? Read your book. Because if you don't read your book and you don't get paid, right, you can't get a job. So medical degree opens medical doors of opportunity. Accounting degrees, you will use it to open accounting doors. Legal degree will help you become a lawyer. I'm saying to do anything, you want to fly a plane, you will go to flight school, right? Is that business knowledge will help you when it comes to entrepreneurship. You can bring in engineering skill. You can spend 7 good years plus even 3 years of experience. Let's say you spend 10, right? Those years becoming the perfect engineer. If you don't know branding, if you don't have communication skill, it will not open the door of branding.
Yep.
That's the point I'm raising. Okay? You can say, oh, I'm doing that 20 years of this. Oh, I'm this. Okay. can you open this door of opportunity with that key? So the
mm,
right key, the right knowledge key. If you want to be a real estate investor, you need real estate knowledge. That's what I'm trying to help people know. Don't go and sit down with and doing something else. It's like somebody says, I want to be a doctor, but they are reading accounting. You are far away from where you want to be.
mm,
So pick something new, because we all came to the world with blank slates. We are all a learning being. Listen, you can do anything you didn't go to school for. If you dedicate yourself to learning, you can learn anything you want to learn. If you say to me now, I want to be a pilot, and you decide to give it 5 years, you will fly the plane. But if you don't learn how to fly the plane, you will still not be able to fly the plane. It's the same thing. So open yourself. Everybody needs to open themselves to a sense of possibility. All things are possible to them that believe. For those who are believers,
mm,
all things are possible to you. All things, everything you want, all the ideas God has for you is possible. How are you going to make it possible? What do you need to build it? That's what I'm saying. The new knowledge, the new journey we all need to go on is in search of what we need to know to do the things we want to do. I want us to ground it there. You can do anything, you can become anything, nothing will stop you. The only thing that will stop you is if you refuse to dedicate yourself to pursue. And that's why I say you can be talking and talking. Talking is not pursuing.
mm.
Talking in, and do you find, let me just quickly say that. Do you know why we talk? Listen, the British system created us a perfect analyzer. Go on Twitter.
Yeah.
We are great with, oh that's why I don't get listen, you can't beat an African with an argument, because you remember that degree, you must argue your way to get that A.
Mm,
With that teacher, they created in us, they teach us, memorize, and they say, oh yeah, argue that you know osmosis, photosynthesis. You will take your pen and paper. Photosynthesis is the study of this. They tell you, okay, computer. You didn't see the computer. You didn't see the practical. Input and you write it. So we are good with theorizing. We were trained. We can write all kinds of research paper, all kinds of we are great. The education we got makes us perfect analyzers, arguments. And you will feel so powerful. When you argue with somebody, you feel like enlightened. Listen, come back to practical. That's where failure is. F. Take that argument and create something with it. Everybody disappears because we were not trained.
mm.
We were not trained on practically using that knowledge and translating it into things you can touch and feel and sell. So again, I empathize, I understand, I've studied this enough. And I'm now saying, let us be aware, right? Let's create awareness that what is chasing us is not in the shadows anymore,
Mm.
right? Because we don't know what is chasing us. That's why we say it is China. That's why we say it is US. That's why we say it is government. We blame everything, and we even blame the entire world. When all you need really is to make sure there's food on your table.
Wow. Awesome. We could go on, and I'm sure if anyone wants to have Coach Toyin back on Iwineti Africa, please put it in the chat so that you'll just know that we have a plan for her. Just put it in the chat, and let's know that you want to see her again come back
Yeah.
before we
And I
go away.
Yeah, and I've been thinking, I want to do like a scholarship, reduce
Okay.
pricing, because
Wow.
the academy is set up for US pricing, right?
Mm,
So I've put some things out there, but I'm currently trying to find a more, like, something accessible for more people in Africa. So that's something I want to land on. That way you can
okay.
still have access to the best knowledge all over the world in a very accessible way, right?
Okay.
Because like I trained UNDP, UN, I did a project for UN where I trained entrepreneurs from 38 African countries last year. That was really an honor, right? So I
Mhm.
really know the power that these things I teach can unlock for people on the continent. So I'm just saying this, if you have ideas, right,
Yeah.
of how to make it more accessible, right, in a way that they'll still invest,
Mm-hmm.
but at least the investment is not is not US dollar.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
at least it can be subsidized,
Yeah.
in a way that is still accessible, particularly the 10-week accelerator. It will totally change things
Awesome.
for people.
Awesome. So if you're in the Kabila community, you're going to hear about this. I'm going to get the package from Coach Toyin. I'm going to bring it to you. All right. I'm just going to bring it to you from Coach Toyin, and we'll be able to take advantage. But in the meantime, you can visit Toyin Umesiri academy. So
Yeah.
Coach Toyin, please tell us more about your academy.
Yes.
Just briefly.
Yes. So I train entrepreneurs. I also train government officials. And entrepreneurship is the entry point to wealth creation. That's what I believe strongly. So there's a free public area where you can tap into a ton of resources that I make available free. And then there's a year enrollment that begins with a 10-week accelerator and then more training. Because again, to be a doctor, it takes 7 years. For us to do all these things, to train, there's mindset programs involved, there's skills, there's sales, marketing. There are about 10 subjects in that 10 weeks. And it starts with mindset and ends with lead generation, marketing plan, content marketing, on and on. So the practical skills are there, about 14 workbooks as well. And then my book is also there as well on Amazon and all of that. So definitely come in. There's a free space. Even this free space, you get a lot. Like if you follow me anywhere on social media, there are mini schools on all my social media platforms. And then the academy is really where the full enrollment, where the school is. And it's this passion that I believe that once you get the skills, you will leave the government alone. Because you would no, honestly, you will leave them alone because the work at hand is what God will say. God will always say, "What's in your hand, Moses?" It could be a stick. The idea God gave you, it could be but that stick can perform wonders. Communication skill in of itself, listen, it will open incredible doors for you, but we've got to develop it. So I want to thank you so much for the opportunity today.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Coach Tony. Awesome, awesome conversation. Great insights, great insight.
Okay,
And we'll have to watch it again, let it sink in. And we're coming
okay.
to your academy. I am coming to your academy anyway.
And I
Just
would
give me
love
a
to
little
get this
time.
link and share it as well because I
Of
just
course,
want to keep it simple, right? I'm just
yeah.
if I'm in boardroom government, it's a different conversation, but I just want to
Mm,
connect deeply with. I hear, I see, I understand. The real struggle, and
mhm.
the best solution I can ever offer is what I'm offering: knowledge. If I know, trust me, if I know any other way, if I know any, I won't keep it. I'm telling you, I've searched all over the world. I dedicated myself to solving poverty. I dedicated myself. I left corporate to say trade with Africa. And after many, many years of talking to World Banks and African Union and continental trade, I've searched high, I've searched low, I've searched everywhere in the world. And I'm going, God, ultimately, God will still tell us
That's your hand.
knowledge. What you know determines the life you're going to live because with our minds, we create our reality. And I call it develop a luxury mind. You will create a luxury life. It's my joking. I joke a lot. But
Mm,
not luxury shoe, luxury bag.
mm,
Enjoy those things. But for a luxury future, God will help us develop like superior knowledge that will help us
mm.
compete all over the world.
Wow. 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 Thank you so much, Coach Tony. And thank you everyone who was on the call. Kofi says, I didn't join early, but the little I heard was awesome. Zoe said, I'll be delighted to enroll in the academy. Yes, the scholarship is coming our way, Zoe. All right. And yes, she also asks, what's in your hands, Camila? James said, of course, the coach should return for another lesson. Awesome. Yes, we want you back, Coach Tony.
Mm.
Great motivation and advice. And James gave us a chop knuckle, double chop knuckle
See,
there.
listen, I'm African pure pure. Like never well, it like all anywhere I go in the world, I wear
Yeah,
my African pride. Like listen, your diversity is your advantage.
yeah,
Like we are, please let's turn it up a notch. Let the whole
mm,
world know who we are, not who they say
mm,
we are.
mm,
They have their whatever story that story is. Listen, my own African story, African pride, African queen.
yeah,
Listen, let's sit on our throne and use what God has given us
mm.
to power our life and our future and the next generation. It's yours. Don't give it away.
Wow. Thank you so much, Coach Tony. We'd love to have you again and a wonderful conversation. And we shall come back to you next week, viewers, on Iwineti Africa with another awesome conversation. Share the link, tag someone, let someone get this insight and change their lives. Have a
Yeah.
wonderful,
I love
wonderful,
Africa. I love my people. Lots of love to you all. Thank you.
awesome, awesome week. Awesome week.